Well, hey Quest, good to see you again. I notice I start these videos every week when I do them kind of the same way by greeting you, but it just seems normal and natural to me. So, hey, just want to say hi, and I've got three things for you today. First of all, I've got my shirt on here. I function, and most of you know this, but I function as a volunteer chaplain in the St. Louis County Police Department. My particular assignment is Wildwood. It's called Precinct 6 for the St. Louis County. But we're also available to citywide or countywide things. And I even talked to a gal today about becoming a homicide chaplain or minister with St. Louis City, and maybe being able to deal with homicide situations and dealing with people, the family's grief after losing someone to a murder. I don't know if I'm going to do that, but it was really interesting. It was kind of attractive to me to see if I could be helpful, but that's why I've got this shirt on. But today's meeting was actually at the Holocaust Museum, which is just off of Lindbergh, up just south of Page, and we met there because the head of all the chaplains for St. Louis County is a guy named Rabbi Mark Shook, who's just a great guy. And so he hosted it there at the Holocaust Museum. So if you haven't been to it, it just opened, the new one just opened about a year ago. And so I would encourage you to go. It's fascinating and it has a very clear St. Louis flavor to it. A lot of the quotes, a lot of the interaction is with people who survived the Holocaust and then after the World War II ended up coming to St. Louis and settling here. So it has a very local feel to it from an incredibly tragic, obviously horrific reality that 6 million Jews were killed in the Holocaust during World War II, and millions of others who were not Jewish were killed too. So, and that doesn't even count all the casualties of all the different armies and civilians, just as a result of the war. But the Holocaust itself was unspeakable, right? So that's what I did this morning, and so thank you for giving me the freedom to be kind of part of the community here in St. Louis. The two other things that I have to bring up, one is lint. So not the thing that you pull out of your dryer after you've run some clothes through it, but this tradition in the Christian church, or many churches, but Christ-based churches, of doing this thing called Lent, which is basically a man-made convention, if you will, but probably a good one. The only problem with man-made kind of institutional structured, and when we legalize things that maybe aren't really clearly defined or described in the scriptures, when we do that, they have a tendency when we legalize things to become legalistic. When we institutional things, they kind of lose their internal meaning and they become external things that we do. But for a lot of churches, a lot of liturgical churches especially, they observe Lent in a pretty clear way, a really pretty strict way. It's basically the 40 days before Easter, where people would focus on prayer, fasting, kind of what we would say mortifying the flesh. It's really to kind of do away with a lot of worldly things so that we could focus on spiritual things in our relationship with God and preparing our hearts and our minds for Easter to celebrate the resurrection. So that is all really good stuff. But when we begin to legalize things, we begin to see all the ways we can get around it. For example, it starts next Wednesday. It's called Ash Wednesday. Some churches, the tradition would be to come and to present yourself to the Lord and to also take some ashes and have a cross on your forehead. That's done in a lot of denominations, maybe most especially here in St. Louis in the Catholic Church. But a time of preparing for Easter. But like mankind always does with these sort of things, they create something the day before. We call it Fat Tuesday, which is Mardi Gras. And it's basically, let's live as decadently as possible. Let's be as earthly and as fleshly as you can get, because when it gets to Wednesday, you need to begin to turn your eyes and your heart towards the Lord. So, just sin like crazy on Tuesday, repent on Wednesday. Well, let's think about it. That's crazy. We're supposed to walk with the Lord every day and to really care about him every day. And so there's not a day to live crazy and then a day to live spiritually. That's just crazy religious legalism. But those 40 days before Easter. Now, different traditions do those 40 days all sorts of different ways. If you were to work your way back from Easter till Ash Wednesday, it's really 46 days. So a lot of denominations say, well, we skip Sundays because that's a day of the Lord already, so we skip those. So if you count back but not on the Sundays, it gets you to Ash Wednesday. It's 40 days. Like Jesus, when he went into the desert and he prayed and fasted for 40 days. That's kind of where this all comes from. There are other examples in the scriptures of other people who fasted for 40 days. But that's kind of where it's built off of. There are other traditions that count the days differently. So which one's right, which one's wrong? Well, it's nothing. It's all just a human convention anyway. But the heart of it is to give yourself to begin to think and take seriously by prayer and fasting, typically. Sometimes there's been even groups that would say you need to be sexually abstinent for those 40 days. And it's interesting, in some countries who took that seriously, the birth rates can be followed according to that month. 9 months later, there's very few babies born. But the month after that, there's a lot of babies born. It makes me laugh. It's just so funny. Mankind is always a strange bird, right? But as we enter into Lent, that season, one of the things that a couple people have asked is, could we make our building available on Ash Wednesday for people to come to the sanctuary, to what we call the auditorium? And that's a whole nother discussion why we don't call it a sanctuary. But would our building, would our auditorium be available for people to come and pray? And so I think the answer to that, we've decided, is yes. So on Ash Wednesday, next Wednesday, the building will be open from 6 in the morning. So if before work you want to come here and just spend some time in quiet contemplation and prayer, a place where you can kind of get away, a safe place, we're going to have our building open from 6 in the morning till 7 at night. And we'll have some stations set up where you could just go and be by yourself to pray. Or if you want to come with some people and pray with them, or if you want to pray with others who are there, that'd be great. Now, some churches will be open every day during the whole Lenten season, 46 days, if you will. We haven't decided to do that, but if that's a desire you have, that this building would be available, let us know, and we'll open it up for whoever needs it or wants it. But this next Wednesday, kind of kicking off Lent, we're going to open up the building for that, okay? And we'll have people here that if you need someone to pray with, will be available, okay? It's just a time of beginning to prepare our hearts and our minds for Easter and the resurrection of Christ, which is really what we base all of our faith on. The reality that Jesus came to die for our sin and to be raised from the dead to defeat death, the thing that none of us can do for ourselves, but only Jesus can do for us. That's where we place our faith. That's where we find our victory, is in him, right? Okay, so that's Lent. The other thing I wanted to just touch base on real quickly was the tragedy, the incredible tragedy in southern Turkey and in northern Syria as a result of the earthquake that happened there. 7.8, then just a little while later, a 7.5, and then all the tremors and aftershocks that have happened since then. 35,000 was the last I saw. I'm sure it's going to go up significantly. 35,000 people died. Turkey's a country of 81 million people, roughly. Only about 10,000 Christians who live in that country. Many of them in the southern part of the country. Many of them have been killed too. So earthquakes are no respecter of persons. It hits everybody. But the Free Church has had a long-standing connection with a group of churches in Turkey and still does. And so we'll be giving you some information soon that the missions team has decided about how do we get involved with this effort. It's going to take a long time for all this to kind of unfold and get cleaned up. And this kind of tragedy never, ever is just, you don't get past it, right? It's incredible, the loss of life, which is the most important, but also the impact far beyond that. So we'll get some more information to you soon, but I would encourage us to be praying for them, and we'll have some information about how you can get involved and how we as a church are going to get involved. So those are the three things. One, the Holocaust Museum. I'd encourage you to go. It's open Wednesday through Sunday, and so I think it's really a worthwhile trip. Secondly, Lent, and third, the tragedy in Turkey and in Syria. Okay? Hey, just want you to know, love you guys. Be well. We'll talk to you soon.